Data documentation and organization are very important best practices in research data management. Besides ensuring reproducibility of research, data that is well structured and documented are also reusable. This is where data management overlaps with the R in the FAIR data principles. Properly documented data will ensure maximum reusability. In this section of Data Management Plan, you describe the types of documentation that will accompany the data to help your future self and others understand your data to be able to reuse it. So your documentation may include details on the methodology that you used, the relevant analytical and procedural information, and data-specific information. And data-specific information can be the parameters or variables that you used, column headings, codes or symbols that you used, and other aspects. Try to be as complete as possible. Depending on the research field, there are different tools for data documentation. But if you do not have one at hand, it is already a good practice to add a piece of data documentation as a readme.txt file. So a plain text file to the folder where the corresponding datasets are saved. In this readme file, you can add relevant information, for example, how the data or folder are structured, how the data was collected, and who collected it. A very relevant type of documentation is metadata. For your understanding, metadata is data about data. Metadata not only enhances the reusability of the data, but it is also a key component of the FAIR principles to ensure findability. Metadata can be in the form of a database, an XML file that follows certain international standards, or some other form. Now, another way to make sure that others will understand your data is by sticking to existing community standards where possible. Standards for metadata vary from discipline to discipline. Here you see an example of the metadata provided by the repository of data archiving and network services, including the title, copyright holder, date of creation, date of availability, the type of access, the audience, the type of dataset, the publisher, and the abstract. And here is another example of a dataset published by the repository of Zenodo. It contains, among others, metadata about the publication date, the digital object identifier, or DOI, the involved communities, the license, and the available versions of the dataset. The website of the FAIR Sharing Initiative provides an overview of metadata standards organized by discipline. On the website you can find links to information about various disciplinary metadata standards, including their profiles, tools to implement the standards, and examples of data repositories that are currently using such standards. For those disciplines that have not yet settled on a metadata standard, and for those repositories that work with data across disciplines, there are generic metadata standards that have been adapted to suit the needs of research data. Dublin Core and DataCite are two of the most common generic metadata standards, where information like the creator, the title, the publisher, and the publication year are necessary for the description of a dataset. The website of the Dublin Core Metadata Initiative and the Digital Curation Center provide other examples of commonly used generic metadata formats. Another thing to think about when organizing your data is file naming. Also, you want to design a good folder structure. A good file name makes it easy to identify, locate, and retrieve your data. With logical and clear file naming, you ensure that your data will be understandable for your colleagues or after a period of time, also by yourself. Now, there is not one recommended way to name your files and folders, but the first rule of thumb is that you should name your files consistently. A simple example could be a structure where you first include the year, the month, and the day of the creation, then the author name or project name that will help to know who collected the data or in which context, and then a short description of content of the file. So you don't need to open it to know if that is what you are looking for. If you work as part of a research group, you should decide on a file and folder naming system with your colleagues. Be sure to follow standard procedures and workflows in your specific field of research. This does not only apply to file names. The structure of your folders and fields in your spreadsheets also deserve solid naming.